Hi, my name is Ilya. I'm co-founder of a startup called MixRank. We make software for sales teams. Started the company a few years ago in 2011. Went through an accelerator called Y Combinator. Raised an angel round, a bunch of angel investors. Mark Cuban led it, a bunch of others. And now we are doing pretty well. We hit 7-figure revenues last year. I think at our current growth rate, we'll hit 8 figures in a couple of years, and so on. What I want to talk to you about today, and I don't have slides because if I had made slides, a lot of you would just copy down the slides and you'd miss the points. What I want to talk to you about today is not the kind of traditional stories that you will hear about a lot in this class. The traditional stories being, well, he worked really hard and slept on the floor for a few years and failed, and then suddenly lightning strikes and something goes viral, whatever, it takes off and
falls from the sky.
Yeah, exactly. Something just takes off and suddenly we go hockey stick growth super fast and everything's amazing. I've heard dozens of those stories. I've read dozens of those kind of fail, and then overnight success type of tales. And I don't want to talk to you about that because I think you can't really learn anything from that, and it's not really applicable to learn how others failed and then suddenly became successful, and somehow they always omit exactly what happened in between those. What I want to talk to you about is what happens in the real world and what will actually happen day to day in your business, which is that most of the time you will be in the middle between success and failure, and you will be kind of hovering on the edge of one of those, not really knowing which way you're going to go. And I will talk about two things. So first, I will talk about how to tell, at least how to make an educated guess about whether you will be successful or not, and how to tell quickly. And secondly, I'll talk about some more very practical, applicable steps that you can actually take and actually act on to go to the next level in your business career, whatever that may be. I'm kind of curious. I want to learn a little more about the group here. So raise your hand if you've already started a business that you're working on right now. Okay, good. Thank you. Raise your hand if you want to start a business in the next couple of years. More. And hopefully we can convince the rest of you who have not raised your hands to join us. This is not a purely kind of hypothetical or theoretical question, because I fundamentally believe that the absolute best time in your life to be an entrepreneur is right now. Right? Absolutely right now when you're in school, when, let's face it, the expectations set upon you are very low, when you have a lot of free time, when, at least in my case, you don't really have to go to class all the time, maybe. I certainly didn't. And just in general, when you basically have a lot of like license to fail. Pretty much, if you come out of college and you haven't done anything entrepreneurial, or you've come out of college and you failed at a bunch of things, you're basically in the same place in life. You're broke and unemployed and don't know what to do. Which is fine. Like that's what everyone is like. And so I would encourage you to absolutely work on something, some kind of project while you're in school. I think that we have a very pervasive story or mythology of entrepreneurs that work sort of day and night all the time, you know, not sleeping, eating ramen, kind of like, I don't know what else you guys do, but just basically like laser focused all the time, work super hard. And that's certainly, there's a time for that. You certainly have periods where you might need to work like that, but by no means is it required, especially when you are just getting started and just testing the market and learning how to build something small, make your first sales, do marketing, all of that stuff. I'm not just telling you this as a theory or as an idea I heard about. Before MixRank, I started my last company when I was a freshman in college, so probably even younger than many of you are. That company, which had no investors, nothing like that. I was going to school in Wisconsin, in Madison, very, very far from Silicon Valley, doing it part-time in school. No investors, no full-time employees. I ended up hiring a lot of my friends part-time. That company paid for all of college. That company taught me a lot of really, really important and really rare skills in marketing and distribution and sales. And that company enabled me, after I finished school, to be able to decide what I wanted to do and where I wanted to live and what I wanted to work on next without any of the pressure of finding a job, of wondering, how can I pay rent? Do I have to like move in with my parents, whatever, all of that stuff. And I know dozens of people who have done the same thing. So it absolutely can be done. It's not something that brilliant other people do that you can only read about. So we'll come back to that and what I did and how you could actually get started very, very quickly. But I want to talk about being in between success and failure and how to know if you are succeeding or failing. Because you're usually on the path to one or the other, even though you might not be completely aware of it. So I want to tell you the story of my current startup, MixRank. And I want to tell you why a couple years ago, so this was about 2 years after we started it, why we decided to take everything we've built so far and shut the whole thing down, even though it was making money and it was growing. We decided to tear it down completely, burn it to the ground, and start over with something very, very different. So we started off in 2011. Our product at the time was a research tool for small businesses. And specifically, it was an advertising research tool for small businesses. So the idea was that a lot of small businesses don't know where to advertise online or how to buy advertising or what they should do. And we would use data to tell them. And so you could sign up with your credit card, you could pay 50 or 100 bucks, and you tell us what product you're selling, and we'll say you should be advertising it here on these sites. It seems amazing in theory because we fell to the same fallacy that everyone succumbs to when estimating how much money they could make and how successful they would be, because we thought, well, there's millions of small businesses out there, and if each one pays us 50 bucks a month, we'll be making gazillions of dollars. Dumb strategy, don't do that. The reality is that it's not a question of what percent of them will pay you money, because that percent could very well be zero. It wasn't zero for us, but it was fairly close. And so we started selling this, and I remember very, very clearly our first month of sales of the software product. We had 12 customers. We made $600, and our revenues were growing 40% a week. And I'm like, hey, investors, we're growing 40% a week. We're gonna make like $800 next week. Which surprisingly worked, because we got $1.5 million from Mark Cuban and a bunch of people. But the problem that we learned very, very quickly is that just because someone signs up and gives you money for something and agrees to buy something from you doesn't necessarily mean they're going to keep buying it. Because what happened is that we had all these small businesses that were signing up, and after a few weeks, they would cancel, or their credit cards would bounce, or they'd call their credit card company and say, hey, I didn't pay for this, charge it back, which happens a lot with any kind of business. And we really didn't want to believe that there was something wrong with our product or with our business model, because all these people were canceling. And so what we did is just invest more and more into marketing and distribution in order to get more and more businesses to sign up. And we were getting more businesses to sign up than what we lost. And so the top line revenue kept growing, and it was growing for a couple of years. It got up to, I don't know, low, mid 6 figures. We had a few thousand customers, but every month we would lose 10, 20% of our customer base. Like, they would just disappear. And what we had was something that looks like the illusion of success, because we have more customers signing up, we're growing, but it's a leaky bucket because we're also losing so many of our existing customers. And this is a really, really common occurrence. It doesn't seem common, but it happens all the time when you have the top line, your revenue that's growing, you have more and more people that are signing up, but you also have a lot of people that are not paying you. And this applies to any kind of business, by the way, not just subscription technology, because you could have an e-commerce store that's selling products where you have customers that aren't coming back. You could have any kind of retail business where you don't have a lot of word of mouth or retention of people that are coming back. And what we eventually decided to do to test this and to see if we were actually succeeding or failing was that we said, okay, well, let's stop spending so much money on marketing for a second, and let's actually see if this will grow organically. In other words, word of mouth, or people that are sharing this, or people that are somehow signing up without us spending all this money and pushing people to sign up. And we saw very, very quickly that everything just started slowing down. And then we realized that, well, we have a business that is making money, that has customers, that is growing, but ultimately it's not going to be sustainable. It's built on a foundation of sand. And really, we had the illusion of success, but we weren't actually succeeding because people weren't sticking around and continuing to subscribe. And so mid-2013, we took a risk. We said, okay, we're going to completely cut this off. Nobody else can sign up for this business. People are coming to us saying, I want to pay for this. We were saying, no, trust us. It's not good for you. And the reason we did that is because ultimately we weren't providing enough value to all these customers in order for them to keep paying us. And we knew, even if they didn't know it yet, that they would sign up and then cancel within a few weeks. And so we did that. We completely shut that off, took our same product and changed who we were selling it to. And so instead of small businesses, we started selling it to bigger corporations, hired a sales guy to go into these bigger companies and sell them and get them to build a more complex product and get them to buy it at a much higher price. So was $100 a month. Now it's like $2,000 a month. Seems like a lot, but it doesn't really make that huge of a difference for a big company relatively. And we launched that, and the first thing we did was start talking to our customers and actually asking them, do you like this? Are you going to subscribe for it? Are you going to keep paying for it? And so what we would do before was that people could subscribe with their credit card, and then after a few weeks they would cancel. And now we said, well, we're going to give you a free trial for a month or for 2 months or however long it takes. And then you decide when you're ready to really commit to this, when you get a lot of value out of it, and then you subscribe for a whole year or for 2 years. And we saw very, very quickly, in addition to some changes of the product, which I don't have too much time to get into, but just that business model of, instead of people having to go and cancel, having them instead talk to us and get to use the product for a while and then decide whether to make a big commitment, made a huge, huge difference. And what we learned through kind of this whole experience of having to build up a business and then tear it down to nothing and then build up again is that there are a lot of signals that are the illusion of success. And there were a lot of things that were very, very hard that should not have been. So that's the second kind of big thing that we learned and that everyone should know to understand if they're succeeding or failing, is that there are some things that should not be as hard as they are if you are failing. So if you're successful, getting customers to recommend your product or getting customers to agree to sit down with you and give you feedback and invest in spending time with you, or even getting customers to respond to your emails should not be super hard. If you're going to be successful, even at the early stage, you shouldn't have to be on the phone with the customer's credit card company arguing that yes, they did actually buy this product and we're not just stealing their credit card and frauding them. If you're going to be successful, it should not be hard to get customers to use your product for free and to try it. This is harder than it seems. And if you're going to fail, all of these things get really, really hard. Getting people to respond to you, getting responses from potential partners, getting interest from people that you might do some kind of joint marketing with, hiring people to work on your project, raising money, which seems kind of silly because I don't want to say that if you're going to fail, everything's hard, and if you're going to succeed, everything's easy. But the thing that we have noticed is that when something is very, very hard, you should look inside yourself and see, well, should this be that hard? Or maybe we are doing something wrong. A concrete example is raising money from investors. We had an interesting fundraising experience in that it was very, very hard, and then suddenly it was very easy. And usually there's kind of nothing in between. So if you have 10 or 20 investors or customers or potential hires that are all saying no to you, the lesson to take away is not that you should persevere doing the same thing and learn firsthand about the definition of insanity by keeping going, keeping pushing. The lesson is that you need to take a step back and try something different, a different approach, a different product, a different pitch, until it becomes easy. And it does become very, very easy. When we talked to Mark Cuban to give us money, who was our largest investor, I think it took about 45 minutes for us to do a deal with him over email to raise $500,000. Took about 45 days to get $5,000 or $10,000 from another investor before we had figured out what our product pitch was and how we should sell it and who we should sell it to. And that is really, really common. You'll hear this from everyone, is that a lot of the times it's very, very hard to get started until it's not. And I'm naturally incredibly lazy. I think that's what makes me a good entrepreneur. And so I don't want to do things that are hard. Why? You don't have to. You really don't. Which brings me to the second part of learning about what you could do that won't be super hard, that you could do to get started and to test out an idea very, very quickly and not go through this hard slog that it seems like it is of building a business. I think the part where it gets really, really hard and challenging and where a lot of the difficulties of entrepreneurship are is with growing and scaling and finding thousands of customers for your business. It should never, ever be super hard to find your first customer, your first 10 customers. That part is the fun part. That's when it's easy. And that's why if you want to get started and test out an idea that you have or something that you maybe would like to pursue as a business, you should look and think about where are the low-hanging fruit? Where can this be easy? What can I do in between classes or in a few hours to prove out an idea? I can tell you what not to do. Here's one thing not to do, would be to spend months working on a product or a concept without showing it to any customers. That's a good thing not to do. A lot of people do that. There's another thing not to do. Go to try to get investors or try to get a lot of employees or interns, or to try to go to a big partnership or whatever else before you have any customers. That's a good thing not to do. Here's another thing that a lot of people do that they should not be doing. Not telling people about their idea because they think it's so precious and so amazing that everyone you tell it to is going to stop everything they're doing and steal your idea and do it. That's kind of dumb. What you should be doing is, or rather, what you should not be doing is falling to the common misconception that everyone seems to have, which is that first you should make a product and then you should sell it. It's one of these great myths that have somehow sprung up that has been very pervasive. You don't actually need to have a product or an item or software, an app, I don't know what you kids are into these days, to actually sell something, to sell to someone. All you need is an idea. And you don't need to invest a lot in advertising or marketing or creating a really complex website or anything like that. For us, for MixRank, the way that we got our first, I would say our first 10 customers at least, was before we had any product. I think the way that we got our first 100K plus in sales was with no product whatsoever. All we had was an idea that became progressively better defined and less vague as time went on. And then we called people or we emailed people. We didn't do any fancy marketing, even though I've spent years doing online marketing and buying advertising, but I knew that we didn't need that. We didn't make a fancy website. We didn't write a lot of copy. All we did, and this is something any of you could do, is we found contact information for people that might make good customers for us. It's available online easily. We have Twitter, we have LinkedIn. You can find anyone's email or phone. And then we emailed them and then we said, hey, we have this solution for you for your problem. Would you be interested in learning more? And if they said no, we said, okay, fine. If they said yes, then we got on the phone with them and we talked to them. And if they were interested, we said, hey, JK, we don't actually have this product yet, but we will soon. And they didn't get mad. I thought they would get so mad. I thought they would just curse me out and be like, what the hell, you wasted my time. But they understand. They waste their time anyway, like 90% of the time at work. I'm selling to big corporations here. But they said, well, let's keep in touch and let me know when you have something I can try. And by the time we actually got to writing a line of code and building something, we had a list of 600 of these people that said, I'm interested, this is a problem that I have, let me know when you have it and I will buy it from you. And any of you could totally pretend to be like a real corporate person, even when you're a college student. No one's gonna know. Like you could get, it costs $10 to register a domain. You could put up a very generic template website. We just had a little form that says, we solve problems for sales teams. Put in your email to learn more. That's it. That's it. We didn't even know what the problem was we were solving in the beginning. It doesn't matter. They probably don't know either, really. And that's it. And we had our website. We sent emails. We talked to people. And we got a waiting list for our product. That's it. That's all we did. Any one of you could do that. Really easy to come up with ideas and test them very quickly. Don't do marketing. Don't buy ads. People do the stupidest things when they buy Facebook ads and then they're like, oh, people clicked on my Facebook ad. that must means they want to buy the product. They probably just, by the way, I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on Facebook ads very successfully. And I will tell you that you should never, ever confuse ad clicks for validating a market or an idea. All you have to do, this is the only way to do it, is to email people, call them, and actually talk to them and sell. And same thing if you have an idea for consumers, same exact thing. Although I personally would stick to ideas for businesses because people at work are so bored that they would love to spend time talking to you. Because it feels like real work, even if it's not. Actually, the higher up in a corporation someone is, the more willing they are, usually up to a point, to talk to you.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because they have a lot of things that they want to deal with, that they want to procrastinate. At least this is my theory. And the biggest fear of a lot of corporate executives is that they're missing out on the next big thing, or that they're not keeping up. There's all of these like journals and papers and white papers and reports that are sold to high-level corporate executives for thousands of dollars to teach them about what's new. And any of you could do that for them for free. Are you kidding me? That's such a good deal. Why wouldn't they take it? And you'll actually learn, like when we got started, I was so scared of enterprise sales and going to all these meetings and all this stuff, but it's actually a lot easier than it looks, especially now. I remember our first big customer was Facebook, and they actually approached us and they said, hey, I saw on your website that you say you solve problems for salespeople. We don't know what you do, but we have all these problems. Can you help us? And went over and met with the guy at Facebook that was running their advertising sales department, and come in, talk to him, get a tour, go to the cafeteria. And as I'm leaving, he's kind of like walking me out, and I'm trying to understand if I actually, like, anything I said made sense to him, or if he's just doing this as some kind of like twisted amusement to entertain himself. But I come in, and as I'm walking out, he looks at me and he says, we're going to become your customer, because I have a lot of people that come in that pitch me. And when I saw you, I thought, hey, thank God he's not wearing a suit, which was good, because I realized that, well, you don't have to be like this fancy, like high-end corporate person. I didn't own a suit at the time, so that was great. Like you as you are today, even as a college student, actually could go and pitch a big corporation. It happens all the time. And after you graduate, just because in a year or two you're working at some corporation doesn't really mean there's a meaningful difference. I very firmly believe in the abilities of college students to do things just as well, if not better, than people that are just a few years older. I want to leave time for questions. So let me tell you, well, you can ask me about anything, but let me tell you what I think you should ask me about. Because these are the topics where I would be the most helpful. Marketing, inside sales, corporate business development, fundraising, whether I think your idea is dumb. Yeah, just things like that. So my expertise is in distribution and sales and marketing. Company I started in college was an internet marketing company. I was doing lead gen, and our current product is in the area of sales. So I will answer questions about anything, but those are good topics. Questions? Yes.
So you said you made a list of about 600 before you actually had like any lines of code, and you said the word "we" a lot. At that time when you were making those calls, how big was your team?
It was really small. So started off, it was me and my co-founder, who was our CTO. And I shouldn't say that we hadn't written a line of code, but we didn't have any product. So we had like the small foundation of something that would one day be considered a prototype. Me and maybe at that point we'd hired one or two people. So it was definitely really small. Everyone else we hired was engineers. But I mean, when I started this, I had nobody. It was just me. And so when I started making that list, it was just me. And then I met my co-founder and I said, hey, I know there's a lot of people here that want to work with you that are looking for engineers, but I have a list of 20 or 30 or whatever it is people that have already said they will buy this once we build it, which is very, very powerful for pretty much everyone. It's great for getting a co-founder or recruiting or whatever else. And even now, by the way, we're a very small team. We're about 10 people, so it doesn't take a huge team to build and sell a product. Other questions? Yes, keep going.
It's going to take it.
Yeah.
Your co-founder became your CTO. Do you come from a technical background yourself? Because you do offer like a software like service.
Yeah. So one thing is that I had to learn enough about it to sort of understand it. So I don't come from a technical background. I studied psychology because that was the easiest major that I could work on while still running my business. Anyone who's interested in psychology, you'll have a lot of time to work on your side projects. I had to learn design because no one else knew it. So I was kind of forced to, like I did our website and a lot of our front end and UX. I think that, I mean, in general, like, especially when you're dealing with a lot of people that you meet in startups or in the business world, you realize like they don't really come from a background of knowing anything. They just kind of learn it as they go. And so like I know I could never actually be able to build a product myself, but I understand it enough to. So here's the summary. You should understand enough when engineers are bullshitting you and understand how to roughly estimate things. I don't think that everyone has to be technical, especially because the technical part usually is not the biggest challenge. Like most startups, you know, I've seen hundreds of them. I went through YC, I'm a mentor at 500 startups. I've talked to hundreds of them. I can't remember a single time when a startup came to me and said, hey, we're having trouble building our products. It's always we're having trouble with marketing or sales or getting customers or all that. So just something to be mindful of. Yes.
Could you talk about your YC experience, how hard it was to get in?
Yeah.
And what it was like?
And this was in 2011, so it's probably changed a bit since then. I think it's become more competitive and kind of later stage. But for us, I think that, so the biggest thing, which makes a huge difference, is that we had some amount of progress, the aforementioned customer list. We had a very, very kind of clear understanding of the market. And also we were both working full-time on it, which made a huge, huge difference because we're already committed. So that was kind of a risk. I've never had a job, so I don't know, but I had to convince my co-founder to quit his job, which I'm told is a big deal. I don't know. But he did it. Seems to work out. And other than that, the actual experience, so the cool thing about YC which is very different, I think, from even any other accelerators, that they're kind of like very hands off. They don't really, so they say like, we can't make you do anything, we can only ask you, which is true. And they don't, it's not like a class where you have homework. Right? You go to a dinner weekly, so it's like attending a class weekly, and there's a speaker talks, and you talk to each other and all the other startups and what they're doing. And maybe you meet with one of the partners, and they tell you to like launch faster, which is what they do. And other than that, like it's pretty much up to you whether you succeed or fail. And so I think it's a great experience. And at least for me, I really liked that it wasn't something where you had a lot of sort of pushing in a certain direction. It's kind of a lot of freedom, and they give you all the tools to succeed, but it's really, really up to you. Yes.
So not related to YC, but what happened to your first company? Did you end up selling it or shutting it down?
Yeah, so good stories. So this is the one that I started in college, and believe it or not, most companies don't actually get bought or sold like outside here. So it was me and a crew of like 20 freelancers in the Philippines and a bunch of my friends in school that are kind of doing it part-time. And so in many ways, like I was the company, and I kind of were like, I don't really feel like working on this anymore. I have this new idea, and it just kind of wound it down. So it was successful. Like it made money. I graduated. I just paid cash for all my tuition, everything. Didn't have student loans. Had a good amount of savings, but it wasn't something that would be able to exist by itself without me. I will mention one thing before we end. So first of all, if there are questions, you can always email me. I will write my email on the board. Do you guys still have overhead projectors? In my day, we had overhead projectors. We just project things. I don't have whiteboards. We are also hiring interns very aggressively. If any of you guys know someone, or if any of you are interested in learning about sales and marketing, we are hiring for both of those. We're still kind of very early stage, small team. We are at the point where we're starting to ramp up really quickly and grow a lot more. And we had 2 interns from Berkeley last year. This year, after they graduate, they'll likely be joining us full time. And so I think it was a good experience for them, and it would be for some people here to kind of learn how a startup works from the ground up. Man, my handwriting is so bad. Any other questions or things that I missed? Yes.
I was just wondering, with the company that you started in college, how did you come up to that idea?
Yeah, and so very briefly, what that company was doing was online marketing and lead gen. So I would buy advertising, the Facebook ads I talked about, and I would send it to other companies that would pay me when they make a sale, affiliate marketing. And the way I came up with it was that I had a blog. It was some kind of like crappy blog that nobody read, but I was looking for ways to monetize it and sort of who would pay me money to put up ads or things like that. And I kind of started exploring that business model. I think a really good way to come up with ideas while we're at it is to just browse the web and see what the different ads are on different sites. And if you see something that's being advertised very heavily, or that is running for a long time, that's not a big brand, good chance that it's making a lot of money. So yeah, it was just by looking at ads and seeing who was advertising on my blog, and then approached them and said, well, can I just send you traffic directly that you'll pay me for? Yes.
So right now you mentioned that ideas is something that you were very interested in. My question to you is, what's your current direction now that you created the company?
Yeah, so now what we do is we build tools for sales teams that they can use to find leads. So if you're a sales team, you could say, well, I'm looking for these kinds of people with these titles, with this information about the company, and we will get you a list of here's everyone that you should be selling to. We use a bunch of technology to find out who you should be contacting, who the decision makers are, what's their contact info, all of that. So it's a way for sales reps to automate prospecting and finding customers. And on that note, nobody please start a company selling to small businesses. It's really hell. You guys don't even know how bad it is. Don't do it. Go to big corporations. Don't be scared. It's not as bad as it sounds. And it's just so much easier. So much easier.
I think that's all the time we have. Thank
Yeah.
you so much.